morning, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. So April is Stress Awareness Month, and we're giving ourselves a collective permission to pause. Today isn't about looking at spreadsheets, it's about looking at human beings behind them. We're going to explore how we move from the red zone of sickness absence back into the green zone, which is productivity, through neutral facilitated conversations. My name's Amy Foster, and I'm with you for the next half an hour. I love this little picture of the Buddha, symbol of calm and peace. But today we're here to learn about mediation, not meditation. So if you thought you were here for a meditation session, you might want to leave quietly now. You wouldn't believe how many times people have misread what I do and get really excited. I'm not sure whether to correct them or just go with it. It's quite similar. We've got the same interests at heart. But I'm a workplace mediator, and I fell in love with this job as it's about listening, asking the right questions, and helping people see a different perspective. My LinkedIn profile's there if anybody would like to connect. So today we aim to understand stress and conflict, recognise the impact of it, what support you have via your policies and mediation, and then practical ways to spot conflict and what you could do about it. As Naomi said, hopefully you've got your bingo card. If you don't, please take a photo of this. You might be able to use it on your phone then. The idea is to spot what's said throughout the presentation. There might be some things that are said and there might be some things that aren't. We'll play at the end. So first of all, we're going to do a game of Have You Ever? So you can just put your hands up at home. If it's not you, you might think of a colleague that's done this or a friend, asking for a friend, that sort of situation. So let's get going. Let's have a game before the serious stuff starts. So have you ever had a situation at work where you just couldn't face going in? You've got work overload. You've fallen out with a colleague. You've been blamed for something that wasn't you. Your manager just doesn't like you and gives off vibes that says so. You've put in a grievance and that's just made the situation worse. Have you ever been shoehorned into a new role and you just don't want and you don't like it? Have you ever tried to speak up, but you've just not been heard at work? Have you had a truly shit manager who really shouldn't have been promoted? They've got the people skills of a pencil sharpener. Have you taken a duvet day just to hide away from work? It's much easier than facing whatever's going on there. Have you woken up on a Monday and your first thought is always to find a new job? It's really not easy at the moment, is it? Jobs are hard to find, so you now may feel that extra stuck. If any of that is a yes, some of this presentation will resonate with you, but you also might have a good story to share with us all at the end. When we look at the modern landscape, we're seeing a significant upward trend. According to the latest figures from the Health and Safety Executive, published in November 2025, the impact of workplace stress is at an all-time high. There are now 964,000 workers in Great Britain affected by work-related stress, depression or anxiety. That's a staggering 24% increase on just 12 months ago. This has resulted in a loss of 22.1 million working days annually. And to put that into perspective, that's the equivalent of losing an entire city's workforce for the year. Stress-related conditions now account for 52% of all work-related ill health and 62% of all working days lost. It's not just a part of the problem, it's now a majority of the problem. So the price of silence and avoidance, so this is doing nothing about it. Conflict isn't just emotionally draining, it's a massive financial leak. ACAS estimates it costs UK employers £28.5 billion a year. That's over £1,000 for every single employee you have on your payroll. We lose 370,000 talented people every year who simply resign because the conflict felt unresolvable. So before we dive into the how, we need to agree on the what. So why are stress and conflict intertwined? The Health and Safety Executive defines stress as the adverse reaction people have to excessive pressures or other types of demand placed on them. Notice that the definition doesn't say stress is simply having too much to do. It's about the reaction. We can handle high pressure if we feel supported, but when the pressure comes from a breakdown in a relationship, that relational strain, it's our ability to cope, it disappears. Conflict is the ultimate excessive demand because it follows you home and occupies your mind 24/7. The CIPD backs it up. This is what these statistics are. While the workload is the top trigger at 60%, look at the others. So 41% cite management style and over a quarter cite workplace relationships. Now, these don't all add up to 100% because you could have ticked more than one box for what it is that's going on for you. So they're not out for 100, but it's you get the idea. This proves that stress in your organisation isn't just a scheduling issue, it's about a connection issue. When people say, I'm stressed, they aren't actually saying that. They're saying, I don't feel safe or supportive in my workplace. When this stress or conflict goes ignored, it's the fastest route to the red zone. People don't sign off sick because they've got too many emails. They sign off because they can no longer face the person that's sitting across from them or whatever that was. This is where we lose our autonomy. They feel trapped by the situation, and staying away feels like the only way to survive. So there are warning signs. There are early signs of this stress or conflict. So managers often miss the signals until the fit note arrives. Look for radio silence, those shortened emails, the delayed replies, or the sudden extrovert that becomes quiet. Watch for the triangulation. That's when staff start confiding in everyone except the person they've got the issue with. Or presenteeism, where they're physically there, but they've checked out or they're just working to rule. In our remote world, repeatedly keeping the camera off or dodging those one-to-ones is the modern version of hiding in the break room. So how many of these can you associate to? Have a look. There's so many things you can see that people do at work just to be able to avoid whatever it is that they don't want to face up to. Take a look at what we can do about that. So it's time to act. This is the manager's first aid kit. Most managers I work with are well-meaning, but they're terrified. They see the signs that they've just talked about, the silence, the withdrawal, but they don't know what to do about it, and they're afraid of making it worse or triggering a grievance. And in the world of well-being, silence is an accelerant. To help you break that silence safely, I want to give you a tool called ACT. So the A is for approach. This is the mindset. So before you even send the meeting invite, check your own weather. So if you're stressed or frustrated, they will smell it on you. Approach with a mindset of curiosity, not judgment. So check out the environment. Location is everything. If you sit someone behind a glass wall in the middle of an office, their brain goes into threat mode. So choose somewhere that's confidential, somewhere that's informal. Take them for a coffee or a walk, a neutral, safe environment that lowers the heart rate and it opens the ears. The C then is for clarify. So it's about finding facts over feelings. We often speak in labels. So you've got a bad attitude or you're not a team player. This is an attack and people defend against attacks. Instead, if you use evidence, so I've noticed you've been quiet in the last 3 meetings and I'm wondering how you are. It's much harder for somebody to argue with a supportive observation than a personal criticism. You need to set those expectations then. So be clear about what good looks like, but frame it as support. I want to help you get back to feeling confident in these meetings. What do you need from me to make that happen? What is it that you're going to help with? The T, the last part, is for time. It's that human pause. If they get upset or tearful, don't panic. Don't rush to fill that silence. That's good. Give them the gift of time to be able to breathe. It shows you value them more than the agenda. It also means that the meeting that you've put in, give yourself plenty of time. You can't leave when somebody's crying. It's really not a good look. And ensure these actions are time bound. Don't leave them wondering what happens next. So let's try that for 2 weeks and catch up next Tuesday. This removes the stress of the unknown and replaces it with a structured path back to well-being. So ACT is your first step. It's about restoring autonomy to the employee. But if you act and you find the tension is still there, you might need a specialist. On to the core of it now then. What is mediation? Mediation is a voluntary, confidential space. So what is said in that room cannot leave that room. Nobody talks about it afterwards. You don't go repeating it to anybody else. I destroy my notes at the end of it. Nothing gets passed on. It's all about future focused. We can't change what's happened, but we can look to see what we can do to be able to prevent this happening and how people can work together. We're not there to decide who's right or wrong. That's not the idea. I don't judge and I don't hand out verdicts. I facilitate a conversation that people have become too scared to have on their own. It's about helping people move from I can't work with them to we've got a plan now on how we're going to get together tomorrow. This day always happens away from work, so it is completely separate. It's to completely concentrate on what's going on here. And it's often getting someone to see the story from a different perspective. They've got their version, the other party's got their version, somewhere in between is the version. So how does mediation work? How do we get people back to wellbeing? So it begins with me taking the brief either from the HR, line manager or solicitor. It depends on the setup of your organisation. Some people don't have HR functions, so perhaps they've had to instruct a solicitor to be able to help. Perhaps there's no internal HR, so it's all the line managers that are calling. If both parties agree to mediation, they will be invited to sign an agreement to mediate. I then have a meeting with each of those parties before the main session. That is done normally online, and it's an hour to be able to sit down, get to know each other a little bit. We don't talk about the issue at this point because an hour isn't long enough. If you start to get into it, you're not going to get finished and you just break the process. It's really about explaining what's going to happen, if they've got any questions, and them having some familiarity with me so that next time they see me, they're going to feel more comfortable. It's getting rid of the unknown. Then you get to the day where they're going to come together. As I said, it's away from work. We will hire 2 rooms somewhere completely different, or it'll be at a different site, however it works for your organisation. One person will go first. It could be the other person is invited an hour later, or it could be they're just in completely separate rooms and they arrive at slightly different times. The idea is to be separate and to make sure that they don't meet as they come in. I'll speak to the first party, get their understanding of their story, what they're looking for in the day, and I'll just listen, just completely listen to what they've got to say. Then I'll go and do the same with the other party. And what I'm listening for are common themes or things that they've got completely different, things that I think they can work on together, places of agreement, places of disagreement. And with that person's consent, I will take parts of that information, if they let me, into the other room and say, okay, this didn't quite match up, or this is what they've said. And I'll start to weave the 2 stories together. And at some point, when I think they're both comfortable to be able to do that, I'll invite them in for a joint session. And there are rules to that session. So if it's getting heated, they're not allowed to speak over each other. They need to give each other time to be able to say their piece and listen, really, really listen. It could be that those sessions need to be stopped and we go back to single individual meetings. The idea, though, is to be able to weave those conversations together and come to a place of agreement. At the end of the day, if we do have an agreement that's written up, it doesn't have to go anywhere unless they want it to, but it's really useful if it goes to either a line manager or HR for them to be able to keep those people on track. I'm not going to be around, but if they start to wobble, HR could step in and say, okay, this is what you agreed. Should we go back to this? I do follow up with them a month later just to see how they're getting on. Now, this can be quite quick to set up. It could be just a matter of 2 weeks between somebody contacting me and the whole thing being finished. And as far as the 2 parties are concerned, they've got 2 individual meetings and then a day. So it's really quick. So easy to arrange, all done in a day. And if you consider this against your other processes, and even worse, if you consider it against an employment tribunal, the timeframes and costs are significantly different. So where does mediation fit into your workplace policies? In most companies, there is a giant gap between the informal chat and the formal grievance. This gap is where most people get stuck and eventually sign off sick because the first option feels too weak and the second one feels too aggressive. It could also be that line managers aren't equipped to be able to hold those conversations and perhaps do make it worse, or HR don't step in at the right time. Lots of different reasons on where somebody is within a process, or maybe they're not even in a process, but that person has then gone off sick. Mediation acts as a bridge. It allows for a formal documented process in as much as mediation is, but it still remains informal in its legal weight. It gives HR a middle way to resolve issues before they become permanent legal records. So it sits gently within policy. This is a key phrase for HR. It means you don't have to rewrite your entire handbook. So your grievance policy, you could allow a pause to attempt mediation within that. Sickness absence, mediation can be written into the return to work plans as a check-in to ensure the environment is safe for the employee to come back. This is why I created this webinar. The past cases I've had, one party has always been off sick and doesn't want to come to work because they don't feel safe with the person that they've made the grievance against or they've had an argument with. They actually need to solve that. The HR processes have spoken to one person, spoken to another, written them down, but nothing's actually got to the root cause and been able to have that very open conversation. And this is what mediation is, be able to actually get to the root cause and to fix it so that they can work together. The last one about going back to policy is about your dignity at work. It provides a mechanism for resolving bullying or harassment through conversation, not just the punishment. If you look at all the changes that are coming up for the Employment Rights Act over this year and next year, there are so many changes, there are so many areas that employees can feel left out, misheard. Line managers have got a lot that they need to catch up on. There are so many ways that work could have this conflict that you don't really realise is going on. This is a time that you can look at your policies and look to see how you're implementing these. Could mediation help when things start to go a little bit wrong? So if we look at the traffic light model, this is a visual decision-making tool to help managers know when to call in the mediator or know when to look at having better conversations. So if we start with the green, that's the prevention bit. The situation is it's tension. It's maybe a shortened email or a disagreement in a meeting where everyone feels uncomfortable about it. The manager can use that ACT tool, the approach, clarify, time themselves. No external help is needed at this point. The amber bit is the intervention. So the managers tried to talk, but it didn't work. There are repeated misunderstandings, or more importantly, someone's gone off sick. This is when you can call in for mediation. This is where you can prevent amber from turning to your red, which then is where your legal nightmare is. Then the red is your formal action. The relationship's completely collapsed by this point, and you're either looking at things like gross misconduct, legal claims, long-term disability. This can still work for formal grievances and disciplinaries, but mediation can still happen here, but usually the bridge has already been burned. You can get it back, but by this point, it really is on fire. I'm not here to replace your HR policies. I'm here to make them more effective. By using the traffic light model, you ensure that formal procedures are reserved for your serious legal or disciplinary matters. Mediation provides the necessary intervention for everything in between, so it keeps your teams functional, your people healthy, and avoids unnecessary escalations. So the human bit, this is the lovely side. So my last few cases, as I said, have all been about employees who have been off sick for a while. They've had issues with their bosses, which is even harder. You know, it's not across that way, it's that way. And they just can't face work. Yet they're off work and all they're thinking and talking about is work. There's no divide anymore. Families are often sick of hearing about this other person that you've got at work. It consumes all their time, their energy, and your headspace. So mediation gives people that space and time to share their stories, and this is so powerful. The bit I just absolutely love is to see people walk out at the end of a day together. It's an absolute game changer. There's just those two people as they walk off into the distance. There will be tears. There's always tears. I haven't had a case where somebody hasn't cried. And I had one case, it turned out to be a completely different issue to anything I'd been briefed on, anything that HR knew about, anything that his colleagues knew about. Everybody was in tears. I was trying not to cry at that day. So mediation restores dignity. It takes people away from being just a case number in a sickness file and gives them back the autonomy to fix their own relationships. So what's next? Conflict isn't failure. It is a signal that something needs attention. Your early intervention will save you money, save you time, and most importantly, it's about your people. So what is one amber situation that you've got at work? If there's something in this presentation that thinks, okay, this could work, what is it that you could address this week? If there's something I can help you with, if you'd like me to be a sounding board, please use this. Feel free to connect with me. I will sit and listen to whatever your story is and see if it's something we can help with. Do you have any questions? I'm going to stop sharing at this point, or I can take questions before we do bingo.